Hello, good morning. Welcome to you all here in the United States and around the world. Today we're joined with Alex Draper, my good friend from DX Learning, for our Leadership Upgrade workshop. And we're going to provide everyone the 4 essentials of psychological safety to inspire high-performing teams. Today's supervisors and managers and HR teams have more than they need to balance in order to get their organizations functioning. Their expectations on their shoulders are challenging, and we want to understand where they're coming from, what they have to balance, and how we can help them. We want to provide you today some discussion around what we see is happening in the marketplace and in the organizations today, and then also provide you with some learning that you can take away from the program, which Alex will prepare and present to you all today. We also want to hear from you, and we want you to provide some comments in the chat in the comments section, and we're going to have some time at the end of the program to cover those directly. So welcome. We're excited for everybody to participate, and welcome, Alex. If anybody would like to learn a little bit more about Alex or myself, you can check out our websites and look at our background. So we're going to kick this off with our first question. And the question we want to talk about is what's happening in corporate America today directly. We understand from some of the articles that we read that managers and supervisors are struggling. We understand that people are leaving for other positions or not continuing in their current role and changing their careers. So what is happening in the workplace today? Alex, gives us some important insight.
After watching and working with thousands of managers over the last 3 years, it's really apparent that there are some major changes going on. And I feel sorry for any manager, whether you're a CEO or a frontline supervisor. It's a challenging time for us. And the major reason for that is the expectations on our heads have changed dramatically since COVID, since 2020. It was tough. It was a tough job to lead human beings before. It's an even tougher job. It's not just America. I truly believe this is a global challenge for all managers, which is you've got the expectations of the modern worker. They're younger. They've got Google. They've got technology. The expectations are far higher in terms of how they want to be treated. I grew up as a Gen X. I'm 44 years old, and back in those days, it was put your head down and get the job done. We call it in the UK stiff upper lip. Just do it, Alex. And it's like, okay, I'll do it. So the work hard mentality was very normal for probably my generation and the generations above. That's no longer the case. So we've got people like me leading people who are much younger, who have a different view on life. Not right, not wrong. It's a generational challenge. And I love it. I think what's going on right now, the want and desire to be treated like a human being is just, it's always should have been there. It's just in previous generations, it was just work hard, work for one company, put your head down, work 10 hours a day, get vacation time, get the pension, and all is good. But I don't think it was good. I really, truly believe that. So what's going on right now is we've got the managers now have this expectation to achieve results. We have to do that as a manager. But now you've got this expectation from the workers, their people, that they want to be treated right. Now, here's the biggest problem. They are not incentivized to do that. They're expected to. So the VPs and the CEOs like, hey, you must treat people well-being as imperative right now. But they're not being incentivized on that. Now, we're human beings, so we are what we reward. So if we reward people to get financial results, they're going to get financial results. Now, this word culture and inclusive and empathetic leadership, we expect you to do that. We're not going to train you, by the way. We're not going to incentivize you, by the way. But if you don't do it, well, it's a problem. So oh man, and I see it and I feel it in the thousands of people that we train. Is we as a business, we train inclusive and empathetic leadership. We'll get into that in a second. But you just see the frustration and the pain on most of these people's head. It's like, I get it, I want to do it, but I can barely barely do my day job in terms of getting results. So that's what I see what's happening. It's great in terms of this new culture, this new expectation that the young are wanting to be treated like humans, but we're not there yet. And we're in a challenging time because the expectations are far greater and far higher. We're not setting up our leaders and managers for success. And it's the sink or swim, which is not the best way to do it.
I agree, and I want to add some other perspective with the companies that we work with internationally and globally. The message is similar. What's also different, what's also added to this mix of difficulty for managing people is the work expectations are enhanced or significantly more expected of the managers in the organizations. The jobs are the same. What they have to do, they have to get done. But what the expectations are, the managers have to balance global and political and financial issues in the organizations more than they used to in the past. And what I mean specifically about that is suddenly we have COVID, suddenly we have supply chain issues, suddenly we don't have parts that we need to produce our product, and the managers have to suddenly jump into problem solving to get this done, things they may never have done before or never had the skill sets to do before. And so I think the organizations have been put into a challenging situation. Besides the human part that you're speaking about, I think there's significantly added complexities around geopolitical, financial challenges that US companies or international companies, it doesn't matter, and managers have to now focus and may not have had the skill set, may not have had that strategic experience or that strategic learning provided by the organization. And I think what this really comes down to is about learning and organizations being able to provide that learning and recognizing that that learning is missing in the organization.
Yeah. Well, I on that note, Cliff, sadly, I read if you haven't read it yet, please read it. I think it was last month's HBR magazine. It talked about gap accounting in this country. I never knew. So in our country, not unlike Europe and the rest of the world, I believe we put human beings and learning as a current fixed cost. So it's basically, it's not on a financial terms. It's not a good thing, right? Both humans and training are, from a CFO point of view, is actually a challenge. It's not seen as a long-term benefit. It's seen as a short-term problem. So that's one of the problems that we've got is the fact that we are, from a financial reporting point of view, we're putting the humans and the training of humans into the wrong place.
Yes.
Our European compatriots and many of the rest of the world see humans and the training of humans as a long-term asset. So you can see how we're getting ourselves into a problem here. We don't see humans and the training of humans as a long-term benefit. Until that changes, we can do the best that we can, and we can. And I say that because while that sounds negative, you get to work with hundreds, if not thousands, of companies who do go against the gap accounting and just say, look, we will do what's right, which is to invest in human beings, because
yes,
none of us were born to do these things. It's what you said in terms of having to deal with macroeconomic and macro political and geopolitical challenges is you don't train for that. You don't naturally just have to deal with it. It's something that we have to learn how to do. None of us are wired to be inclusive and empathetic. It's not natural for any of us. We have to train people. So you can't just magically expect people to do what's expected of them in this new modern workplace. And again, I totally agree, Cliff. We're just not setting our managers up for success. We have these huge expectations, and we just magically believe or not believe that they're going to do it. And if they don't do it, we fire them. And you see why there's so much burnout and stress and anxiety out there. Is because the poor old managers are literally, how do I do this? I can barely survive. it's a tough place.
One more component I just want to add to what's happening out there is you mentioned earlier about your age and where you are in your career. And so if you think about that age and add another 10 years on, or maybe another 15 years on, or even younger individuals who are running the companies and they're the senior leaders of the organization. If you look at your age group and up, they grew up with the mentality of just put your head down and get it done. And we're all in this together to focus on profitability for the company.
Yep.
And now with those individuals who are being challenged by the employees in their organization who are younger, saying, you need to treat me better as a human being, they don't have the skill set to understand what does that mean. They hear it and they understand it's a problem and they recognize that they need to change. But I think at their level too, the senior executive level, whether you're older or whether you're a younger CEO, the younger CEO has the challenge of having to manage up. So managing the older generation who have a different perspective on work ethic and grit and getting stuff done. So I think that adds as an additional complexity at the senior level, the C-suite level.
Yeah.
So I think what we would like to do now is provide the folks who are listening to our podcast some learning and give them something to take away from the program today that they can use and they can take advantage of within their organization. So Alex, I think you want to share with the folks your CARE program that you've put together and take everybody through what does that mean and how that can help an organization be more successful.
Yeah, you got it, Cliff. Thank you. And before we launch into more than likely about 20-25 minutes of fun, learning, because that's hopefully why most of you are here, is to learn and to improve yourself. Feel free, as we just talked for 12 minutes about what we see. Anyone else want to add any comments about, again, the challenges of the modern manager? And a manager is, just for clarity purposes, a manager is anyone who has direct reports. That's a CEO, that's a VP, that's a director, that's a supervisor. Anyone who has direct reports is a manager for simplistic terms. Now, as a manager, I have two things to do. I manage my people and I lead my people. And what we're about to go into is the leadership side of things. So every manager has a choice to manage or lead. We're going to talk about leadership, which is expected. Sometimes it's a choice and sometimes it's not. Sometimes companies have values, sometimes they don't. I'll go into some of that in a second, but just for context, that's what we're going to be getting into right now. We can all control our choices around how we lead those around us. Whether you have direct reports or not, you can still lead people, right? It's one human being positively influencing another human being. So I'll give you some context around that. But any other comments that you've got while I'm starting this off around what are some other challenges of the modern manager, please put those into the comments and maybe we can use those as we go through this. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Press that. Making sure everyone can see that. Cliff, we looking good there?
We're looking great.
Fantastic. All right. So let's have some fun. Let's have some learning. So firstly, I'd like you to put your growth mindset on. So a lot of the challenges I see in the workplace is people are like, are you kidding me? I'm already the best leader ever. And they probably say that because they think it, but why do they think it? Because no one's telling them that they're not. That's a challenge. So leadership is like art, cooking, and golf. It's something that you will never, that's an absolute, I'm okay about saying that, never perfect. You can only improve. That's the growth mindset. The growth mindset, if you've read Carol Dweck's work on this, which is fixed and growth mindset is this notion that I'm not perfect, I'm never going to be perfect, and through hard work, determination, failure, and mistakes, and learning, and trying new things out, I will improve. A fixed mindset is the opposite, of course. It's I'm born this way. There's nothing I can do to improve. A lot of people have a fixed mindset for leadership. Please don't. None of you are born to be perfect, and I'll show you in a second why. All I will ask is for the next 20 minutes and in life, put on a growth mindset for this notion of leadership. And the second part, which is really important for all of you leaders and anyone from HR, this is the challenge, right? So the culture of a team, the culture of a company is actually a mirror of its leadership. So if I'm as in that illustration, if I'm happy, my team are happy. If I'm sad, my team are sad. If I'm inspiring, my team will be inspired. If I'm a micromanager and I command my people, then they will just follow me. At the end of the day, the culture of a team is a mirror of leadership. Leadership is how you behave. It's the actions, and how we behave is dictated by what we value, which is why values in your corporations are so important. What I see is values written on the wall: integrity and innovation. And it's said, well, it's not even said, it's written, but no one actually does anything about it. So what we do need to do is put a lot of effort and time into values, because the values will guide people's behaviors. So hold that thought. And I'll always say this: the real culture of a team is the worst behavior that you're willing to tolerate. So if you have a bad egg on your team, they're bringing the whole team down. And unless you're willing to have consequences about that, they become the new cultural norm of the team. So just hold that thought. Two pieces of context before we get into here. I hope you all have a brain. There's, I think, around 8 billion people in this world. I believe they all have a brain. Just so that you know, I'm sure all of you could answer this. The brain's primary purpose is to keep you alive. Right? This primary purpose, nothing's changed in 300,000 years or so. Its primary purpose is to keep you alive. So if you're a manager and you have direct reports, this is not a trick question, your primary job is to keep your team alive. So that's why I said no one was born to be a leader. Not one single human being ever. Because you're going to have to fight 300,000 years of evolution, but 165 biases in order to do what's best for your team, not for yourself. So we are born to be selfish, self-centered, survival human beings, right? Our brain is tricking us every single day to keep me alive. Just a quick science lesson. The brain has heuristics. Heuristics are shortcuts to preserve the brain energy, power, and resources to scan for threats. Thousands of them, all right? Shortcuts, assumptions. We're an assumption-making machine. The negative outcome of a heuristic is called a bias. We've researched about 165, so we'll go into a few of those today. You've all got them. There's some real bad vibes about biases right now because of what's happened. It's not bad, it's not good. You've got them. You don't get rid of them. And if you understand that, you're already a better human being than most. So just a little bit of context here to get us into it. None of you are born to be leaders, which is why we've got to train people, right? If our primary purpose is to keep me alive, and that's everybody, unless you're trained to be more of a servant leader, you are going to be selfish. And if you come across selfish, that feels like you're a narcissist, and that's a challenge for businesses. So that's a little bit of a science lesson to get us into it. This notion of psychological safety, I truly believe, will solve nearly everything that many of our problems in teams and in corporations can be solved through psychological safety. Amy Edmondson, if you haven't read a book, I highly recommend you read it, The Fearless Organization. Her definition of psychological safety is a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Now, let me put some boundaries around here. This is not randomly going up to your boss and saying something negative about them as a human being. That's not interpersonal risk-taking, but it's speaking up and voicing your concerns about important matters. And it's a shared belief among a team of human beings that everyone on this team can be their true authentic self and can speak about what's important. That's what this is. And so imagine that. The generational issues that Cliff and I talked about, you'd be talking about them. It's like, hey, boss, I know you come from a different world, maybe even a different planet, but let's talk about it, because what you're doing right now is upsetting me. I'm glad that you said that. Great, let's fix it. So we can't fix what we don't know. We can't change what we don't know needs to change. So psychological safety, this notion of being able to have a voice and speak up, can solve so many of our issues. And going back to that brain, it's very binary. It either feels safe, and if it feels safe, it's at cognitive ease. If it's at cognitive ease, it's not stressed, it's not anxious, and it can perform at its maximum potential. Hence, it's not stressed, it will speak up. If it's not feeling safe because your boss or your team or someone's doing something untoward, they're not treating you as you want to be treated as a human, it goes into survival response, which means the threat circuitry in the brain is triggered, which means there's stress and anxiety, more cortisol and adrenaline, and therefore it's not going to speak up. It's going to protect itself. It'll be guarded. It'll be territorial. It's like, protect me, versus survival for performance, which is, hey, how can I help? So just a little bit of again, this is, and imagine a team that has this. This is where innovation, creativity, and well-being, all is created because we're just talking about what works and what doesn't work. And Santosh, it was Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson. Wonderful book, one of my favorite books. Highly recommend if you, again, the notion of fearless. I always say silence kills businesses, silence kills leadership, and silence kills relationships. Many of our challenges at home are because we don't feel safe to speak up with our husbands, our wives, our partners, and our kids. This can solve so many issues. Easier said than done. And again, many things in our industry are misunderstood and weaponized. So let's get into it. So care, the 4 essentials of psychological safety to inspire high-performing teams. Because if we're psychologically safe, we're in performance mode, we're breaking down doors, we're working for one another, and we're not doing the opposite. And how do we do that? What's care mean? Well, we talk about care a lot. Care could mean one thing to one person, one thing to another person. Here we go. C stands for clarity, clear communications, maintaining alignment. Autonomy is about giving autonomy, making people feel that they have a voice and they can have the freedom to make decisions and have ownership and empowerment. Relationships, go figure, the human stuff. Do you really know the people on your team and what's going on in their lives? It's the positive interpersonal relationships and behaviors that really drive a sense of belonging. And equity, sense of fairness by proportionally providing the time and attention to those that need it the most. Not equality, equal, equity, fair. So that's what I mean by care. So we'll go into this. It'll be a real quick little exercise, and then we'll stop and take questions. So clarity. Let's go with clarity here. So the first part of care is to provide those that you serve and each other clarity. Just feel free in your brains or in the comments, just put, what's that mean to you? Because what it means to you, we'll see what it means to us. So feel free in the comments to put a few, hey, what's clarity mean to you? While you're writing that, this is what it means to us. It's a shared understanding of crystal clear expectations to achieve collective goals, right? We are a team of people. It's not about me as the leader, me. It's we. So it's a shared understanding. Let's get on the same page here, the same line of the same book versus different books, because that's a problem. So crystal clear, because if it's not crystal clear, it's ambiguous. If it's ambiguous, my brain's going to go into threat circuitry. Easier said than done. Let's have some fun with this. I'm going to turn this card over, and on the opposite side of this card is an acronym. Can you all put into the comments what this acronym means to you? All right, so put in the comments as quickly as you can what this acronym means to you. And I will give you a few seconds to do this, okay? Here we go. Let's see what's on the other side of the card. If you can all just write down what that means to you. Cliff, for fun, what's it mean to you?
I'm going to plead the fifth. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Okay. Proof of concept, Santosh. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything? Who else has something? Put it into the comments. What's POC mean to you? I'll turn over the card now just because Santosh has done it. Proof of concept as well for Emily. Thank you, Emily. Anyone else before I turn it over? Point of care, Jonathan. There we go. Imagine if Emily and Jonathan were on the same team. And their life the challenge, all right? So it could be person of color, proof of concept, point of contact, point of care, plan of correlation, piece of cake, whatever. This is the problem. One thing, one word, one acronym can mean one thing to one person and one thing to another person. So we call this the curse of knowledge. Remember, I said 165 biases. The curse of knowledge is a cognitive bias that occurs when one person unknowingly talking to another person assumes that the other person has the same background. So when I say, hey, Emily, can you go do my POC today? Emily goes, sure, proof of concept. And I'm like, what now? So, but this is a problem, right? When we're sending emails, we're communicating with people. This can mean if we don't get it right first time, we're duplicating efforts. We're causing unnecessary stress. It's not just acronyms, it's everything. Going into the doctor's office and they just rattle off these big long words and they assume that you have the same level of understanding. Or a leader who's like, hey, our EBITDA is great this year. You're like, EBIT what? Again, that causes the threat circuitry to trigger. So curse of knowledge, it's simple for one person, but it's not simple for the other. We've got to stop this. This causes so much stress in the workplace, so many issues at home. And we've all wired with it. And I always say the more technically gifted you are, the more cursed you are. So the more intelligent you are, mostly managers, right? The worse you are. You were promoted on your technical expertise. So of course you're cursed more than others. So when you're talking, sending emails and conversing with your team members, this curse of knowledge can really hurt you. Because if I have to waste my time, having to call you up again or call a friend and say, what the hell does this mean? I'm not in a good place. How can we counter it? Here's some ideas for you. Summarize and repeat back what you heard to ensure and maximize clarity. Hey, can I just repeat back what you just said, please? Again, this is what you can do. I'm putting what we can control to raise psychological safety. By repeating back, that's the only time when we can be aligned. But your brain doesn't like that, right? Your brain loves assumptions, wants to get onto the next thing. When using acronyms with new people, always define what it is. I always go back to an email before I send it and I go, would they understand this? You know what? Just in case they don't, let me just explain that. They'll love you for it. That gains trust. Reread emails and text messages and ask yourself, do they know what I know? Trust me, when you start to do this, you gain trust, and trust is the first part of psychological safety. For a group of people to be psychologically safe, we all need to trust each other. Here's how to do it. Slow down. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. The slower you are, the more questions you ask, the more likely you are to be aligned and gain clarity. So, simple exercise for all of us. Be more clear. Clarify more. Assume less. You know what happens when you make assumptions. So there's clarity. Really important. Autonomy. All right, C stands for clarity. A stands for autonomy. Just mentally go through, what's autonomy mean to you? Feel free to write something in the comments, or just write it down in your head, or just think about it. What's this word autonomy mean to you? What it means to us is trusting your team to do what needs to get done, but on their terms. I'm going to emphasize this word trust. In the hybrid workplace, what we didn't talk about, Cliff, was hybrid, right? That's a big change. We've got the expectations of treating people like human beings. We've got all the macro and political issues that are going on right now. Oh, and by the way, you've got to lead a group of people who you don't see them anymore. So, and this is a terrible one, right? Autonomy, especially in the hybrid workplace. When we can't see people, when we don't know what they're doing, our brain gets angry. I don't trust people, and you end up micromanaging, and no one wants to be micromanaged. Put your hands up if you love to be micromanaged. Said no one ever. So trust in your team. If it's a trust and on their terms. And Santosh, you put it right. I love it. Trust. And Laura, freedom. Freedom. I always say that's the old what's that film? Braveheart. Mel Gibson, freedom from the English. Anyway, so freedom, we all need it. Great. Here's the question. This is a real one, especially in my household. My daughter, Victoria, Queen Victoria, she loves to sleep, and she's typically late for school nearly every day. Come down the stairs, it's like, hey, put your shoes on, tie your laces, get it done. And she goes, no, you do it. And we're late for school. What's the first thing that comes to mind? What would you do if your kids late for school? We're late for school. Their laces are undone. Their shoes are off. What are you going to do? What is your instinctual survival mechanism? What would you do in this situation? And I bet you, all of you would say, I would just tie the laces for her.
Yes, get it done.
Every time. Now, if you're tying the laces for her, what is she not doing?
She's not learning how to get
Yeah.
it done herself.
Boom. And that's a problem, right? So whether it's a team member who has a PowerPoint and we've got an hour to the client presentation, and you're like, what is this? No clarity. What is this? What did you do? Yeah, fix it. You might even end up doing the presentation yourself, right? This notion of getting our sticky fingers and doing things on behalf of our people, it's stealing autonomy from those that we serve. And if they're not doing it, they're not learning. If we're doing it for them, we're controlling them and stealing autonomy. But we're biased for control, some more than others. Trust me. We love to be in control. Because of why? It's the bias of the law of least efforts. It's quicker and easier for me to do it myself than it is to allow someone to do it for themselves. But by doing that, you're stealing autonomy, you're stealing innovation, creativity, and learning. But we love to do it, especially when we don't see people. Micromanagement is going through the roof with the hybrid workplace because we don't. Our lack of trust of the team means my brain's telling me just do it myself, do it myself. That is not good for the workplace, nor for trust. How am I supposed to trust you if you keep doing things for me? Real trust comes from letting go, allowing people some mistakes and some failures. And here's how you can counter that bias: asking, not telling. Reread text messages and emails and see if you could replace a tell with a question. People love questions. They like two questions. Here's a little bit of advice for you. Never ask one question. Never, ever, ever. It's one question with a follow-up question. And then that second question should be the last 2 or 3 words of the first of the person who talked. Use those last 2-3 words to formulate your second question. Because then he feels like, oh, they're listening to me. 2 questions minimum. There we go. Practice listening more than talking. If whoever talks more in a situation, no one likes that. No one likes someone who talks. It's funny because I'm talking here for 20 minutes, so I apologize. But practice listening
But
more.
we're giving you the stage to do it.
Yes, less time talking, more time listening. I read a wonderful HBR article a couple of weeks ago called the 1 minute, red, amber, green. Green is the first 20 seconds. You're allowed to talk for 20 seconds. Trust me, science would say after 20 seconds, the person on the receiving end starts to go, oh, can they just shut up, please? So that's an amber for the next 20 seconds. And for the last 20 seconds, it's like, can you just stop talking, please? You should never talk for more than 60 minutes, and you should try and talk 60 seconds. You should try and talk for 20 seconds and then ask a question. And let go of perfectionism. No one likes it. It's horrible. Right? Be comfortable making mistakes. Be comfortable allowing people the opportunity to fail. And that's that growth mindset. All right. So be trusting. We need to help people go, it's their way, not necessarily my way. And my way is not always right. So be trusting. And Santosh, I'll come to that question at the end there. And Cliff, if you can make sure I answer that question. Okay, we're nearly through this now. Halfway through, a couple more minutes. Here we go. Relationships. Just mentally go through, what's this mean to you? Relationships. What's that? What's the first word or words that come to your mind with this notion of relationships?
Engaging.
Sorry, what was that, Cliff?
Engaging.
Engaging. Thank you. Engaging. And engaging would come from demonstrating you care by connecting to your people on the human level. So it's the demonstration of care. It's not all about work. Just remember, people do the work. And you know the people who are doing the work. Thanks, Laura. Quality connection. Do you really know what's going on in the people's lives, or is it all just surface level? I'd hasten to say more than likely that it's surface level. And I'll go to why in a second. But let's just pretend one of your team members here, just to get the bias out. The person in the mirror, we call this. So Ben there before is one of your team members, probably been there now about a month, and you have a stand-in meeting at 9:30 every day. And it's an important meeting. So Monday, he's there. He's late to work or doesn't sign on right, but he's Tuesday not at the meeting, right? Totally late. Wednesday turns up in a little bit of a Thursday misses it again. Friday on time. But what's your initial reaction with Ben? Like, there's a really important meeting, and three times just misses it. What's your first reaction? Be honest. Mentally go, what's your reaction to Ben?
I am annoyed.
I'm annoyed. Oh, or for example, what do we put here? We put he's lazy. He's always lagging, slow, uncommitted, unengaged, tardy, late. So just our brain goes with limited information, it will go to the negative and start, I hate to say the word, but prejudice and judging. That's what we do to people when we don't know them. We start to judge them. And that's where prejudice comes from. It's terrible. So this is really not good for human beings, but it's what happens all over the place right now. A lot of the issues that we have with people and teams and this sort of territorialism and lack of collaboration is because one team or one person's judging the other person with limited information. If you are late to work a couple of times a week, what are some reasons that you might be late, Cliff?
Family issues.
So Ben's lazy, but you have family issues. There is the bias. But what if you did get to know Ben? What if you were curious and gave Ben the benefit of the doubt? You found out that, his kids have started school. He switched in Chicago, where we're from. The metro trains are broken down for the week. Maybe he's sick, has doctor's visit, but no one ever bothered to ask him what's going on in his life. So just more than likely, there's a reason why Ben's late. But our initial reaction is lazy, uncommitted. But is he really? That's a problem. So we call this the fundamental attribution error. It's a horrible bias. We've all got it, by the way. Here's a lengthy version of FAE, which is an individual's tendency to attribute another person's action to their character or personality, Ben, lazy, while attributing their behavior to external situations and factors outside their control. I.e., it's one thing for me, but it's another thing for everyone else. That's a problem. Easy, I create the error, external fault. Others create the error, personal attributes. And so you're lazy versus Cliff's example of disengaged versus I have a family issue. In simple verbiage, we tend to judge others differently than we judge ourselves. That's a problem. How can we create great relationships if all we do is judge each other? Right, we've got to give people the benefit of the doubt. So some best practices for you: catch yourself saying jerk, right? When someone cuts you off in traffic, what's your initial reaction? Ask yourself the question. I know you can't ask them, but hey, what's really going on in their life, right? Stop the prejudice. Replace that with hey, I need to find out more about this person. Get curious. Start every conversation with a sincere curiousness of wanting to get to know something new about other people. You'll be surprised at what everyone's got experience, and those experiences make you who you are. I'm not perfect. I am who my 44 years of good, bad, and ugly. But do you really know me? If you knew me, you understand why I do some of the things that I do. And why I started DX to wipe out bad leadership. Do you really know why I started DX to wipe out bad leadership and narcissism? Find out. Stop talking about yourself. Stop talking about yourself. Catch yourself talking about yourself. You have 20 seconds only to talk about yourself. Stop doing it, people. So be empathetic, be curious, not distant. All right, let's close this out. So clarity is the what. The clearer the what, the better life is, right? So same line, the same book, not different books. Stop the curse of knowledge. Autonomy is the how. Let's get people learning versus controlling. And relationships, get to know them. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Find out. Get curious. Equity, here we go. This is the finale, and then we'll do some Q&A. What's it mean to you? What's the first word or words that come into your mind with this word equity? Here we go. Pretend you got 2 employees, 2 team members. We're Star Wars fans here, so got to have Luke and Leia. So Luke's goal is to generate 25 leads, put them into the CRM system or whatever the tool is by the end of the week. And Leia's is exactly the same. Generate 25 leads, put them in the CRM system by the end of the week. And this is all that you know about those 2 people. This is all that you know. It's all about the result, as it is in many organizations. So if you are their boss, and those are your 2 team members. Thank you, Santosh. It is about balance. How would you divide your time between Luke and Leia? If that's all that you knew, which is not much, it's just about the work. How would you divide your time between Luke and Leia? A, B, C, D, or E? Just really quickly, what would you put? Cliff, what would you put?
20 minutes at the beginning of the week.
Okay, 20, is it 20-40?
Oh, sorry. Equally. No, I divide the
Equally.
time
Oh, I
equally.
love it.
30,
Thank you. Equally.
30
I,
minutes equally.
you got it. 30-30. So who wouldn't, right? It's got to be C. If we don't know what's going on, we can't, as Santosh said there, we don't have balance, then we tend to default to equal. Now, pretend that you're an amazing leader. You've got relationships now. So there's Luke and Leia. But you have a relationship and you got curious and you gave them the benefit of the doubt and you had a little bit of a one-on-one. You had a walk and talk. You got to know them. You found out that Luke values someone to share ideas with, like someone checking on the work, and has only been doing this for 5 years. Leia, goal-orientated, results-driven, loves her freedom, and she's been doing it for 20 years. Now that you have a relationship with both your team members, how would you divide your time between Luke and Leia now? Would it be A, B, C, D, or E?
C. Doesn't matter. You should always divide equally.
Ooh, Cliff, going to challenge you on that one. It really, hopefully a lot of you put A's and B's, right? Because Luke said, what did Luke say? I want you, boss. I need you, boss. I've only been doing this for 5 years. And Leia's like, boss, I don't want you, boss. I don't need you, boss. Get the hell out of my office. I've been doing this long enough. Right? So Luke needs more time. Thank you, Santosh. Right? Luke needs more time. And here is equality versus equity. Now, bias number 4. Default equality bias, a tendency to treat team members the same or equal to mitigate fear of social recourse. I.e., my brain's telling me with limited information, treat everyone equally. Look at this picture. Some of you have probably seen this before. When you treat people equally, someone somewhere gets left out. That is I don't want to say the words, but I'm going to say it. It's disengagement, quiet quitting, all of that stuff. That's what's happening in the workplace right now. Is that Luke? There's millions of Lukes. Millions, because bosses default to equal, but that's not what people want. No one wants to be treated equally. So just hold that thought for a second, right? So this is the change of mindset. Stop treating people how you want to be treated. Start treating people how they want to be treated. Give Luke what he wants. Give Leia what she wants. The world's a better place. There's the be balanced, which Santosh got, right? Be fair, not equal. I know there's another picture that says break down the fence, but this is what we can do inside our control. We can control how we treat people. We can control how we distribute our time and energy, which is what we call equity. It's the proportion providing the time and attention and energy to those that need it the most. Luke needed more than Leia, but if you didn't have a relationship, you would not have done it. You would have defaulted to equal, and poor old Luke would have been disengaged and more than likely on LinkedIn looking for a job. You cannot afford to have that happening. We are making less babies. The world is shrinking, and especially in America. And I had a wonderful conversation with a CEO yesterday. One of our clients is like, look, we have to look after our talent. We need to promote them internally. I'm looking ahead 5-10 years. If I don't start doing this now, we've got a big problem. There are less people and less great people, and we can't afford to do Luke's. And who doesn't want fairness? But we don't get it. In this research, HBR, 82% of employees report their working environment lacks fairness, equality versus equity. But if you do have fairness, we achieve more. Go figure. Simple, but easier said than done. And that's the CARE equation. The book's coming out this fall. This is what our business is all about. So clarity plus autonomy plus relationships plus equity leads to psychological safety. And if one of those pieces is missing, i.e. if you don't have clarity, well, then you're going to end up stealing autonomy. If you're stealing autonomy, you'll never have time, the thing we all moan about the most, to build relationships. If you don't have real below the surface relationships with your people, I'm going to say you'll never have equity. And if you don't have equity, people feel a sense of unfairness and disgust, which means people's brains are in cognitive stress and they're not psychologically safe. So this notion of psychological safety is really difficult. And I started this business in 2015. Still don't have it. I'm working 7 years and I still don't have it. Why? Because I'm an entrepreneur and I run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm not good at providing clarity. I've actually finally, for the first time, started to surround myself with people who can provide more clarity than I can. I'm great at giving autonomy, but actually my business nearly failed last year because I gave too much autonomy with not enough clarity, and I didn't have enough of the natural gift of dealing with conflict and holding people accountable, and that bit me. So again, it's this no, and comfort and being nice to each other is not psychological safety. We had a very nice culture at DX. We're good to each other, but that's not psych safety. Psych safety is not nice. It's not comfortable. It's hard. It's the hard conversations. It's that mixture of high performance standards and high trust, high psychological safety. So just last question for you. Which of the care constructs? Is it curses knowledge, clarity? Is it law of least effort, autonomy? Is it the fundamental attribution error, relationships, or the default equality bias? Which one of those do you think in your world, in your life, is holding you back? One of them is. Everyone's held back by something. Have a little bit of honesty with yourself. Which one of those four is your Achilles heel? And if you want to really go into it, put it into the chat. All right. Real simple, just to put this into perspective. Trust, psych safety. Trust is between two people. It's me and my wife. It's me and one of my team members. It's me and my child, whatever it is. But when two people are cared for and there's a caring relationship, that's trust. When a whole group has trust, that's psychological safety. But if I don't trust you, Cliff, I'm going to have a guarded relationship with you. And if I don't trust my team, that leads to silent working and office politics. And there's the difference. If I believe people have my back and will be treated like a human being, that gains trust and psych safety. If I don't, you get guarded relationships and silent working. And I need people to speak up. There's no point going home thinking and talking to myself and to my husband or wife or partner that I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's useless. I've got to tell my people I'm overwhelmed. That's the power of psychological safety. It's speaking up and having a voice. For people to emphasize with you, you must first let them know how you feel. And that's the power of psychological safety. And that's it. I'd love you all just to have a quick think of, based upon what you've learned today. Not you could, not you should, not you're going to think about it. But what will you do with what you just learned in the last, half an hour? And I will tell you this, if you love what you had in half an hour, imagine what you could do with 4 hours or 1 day or 3 months with us. This was a little intro to care, and you can all go away and care. Everyone needs to be cared for. Without care, you don't get to psychological safety. All right, that's me done.
Great. Thanks, Alex. That's awesome. So let's jump to some of the questions that people were asking. You said to hold one question aside that you wanted to address. So please continue to provide your questions for those who are still listening, and let's respond to what some of the questions that people had asked.
Santosh, you said, any advice on how we can overcome biases when we get branded as the person who asks too much? So just play this one out. So you're branded. Thank you, Santosh. So it's a great question. I get curious with that. So is the branding an assumption that people think it, or do you know? So my first question would be, do you know that you're being branded, and how do you know? But let's just say that you're the person who always asks questions. So then in a truly psychologically safe place, I'd ask my team, hey, I've heard that I may ask too many questions. Can you help me have this balance between what questions that you'd like me to ask? Because what I'm trying to do here is give you autonomy and build this creative, innovative, psychologically safe team. And I don't want to tell you, I want you to learn, but it sounds like it's not coming across. Can you help me? So if I do hear a lot, part of my job as a manager of my company with employees is I hear things. So if I hear things, I get curious. I don't get defensive. I'm like, let's find out. Hey, team, I understand that this could come across as I'm asking too many questions. Let me tell you why I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions because I want you to learn for yourself. I want you to have autonomy. And it sounds like they're not coming across right. Help me. That's sort of how I get across. It's not I don't think that's a bias. It's you're just trying your hardest to give autonomy. What I would probably recommend is you're not giving the why, right? Clarity is why and what. So I'd start with the clarity. Hey guys, just as a team, I would like, and this is why care is so important, right? I'd actually teach people care. Hey, for us to be a high-performing team, we need care. We need clarity, autonomy, relationships, and equity. Clarity is this, and explain it to them. So at least you now have a vernacular of language. Like, it's like the love language. That's a book. It's a language of leadership. So explain why.
Alex, quick question. I think just to give Santos's question a different perspective, you're answering the question as the leader, being branded as asking too many questions.
Yep.
Give us some perspective as the individual on the team who is the one always asking the questions.
Gosh, so you're a team member, you've been branded. Let me just go. It's the same rules apply. Hey, I've heard that I may come across as asking too many questions. Again, clarity. Hey, I ask questions because I'm curious. I want to know. I'm a learner. Again, here's your give people the benefit of the doubt. Here's your fundamental attribution and the relationship piece. It's let me talk to you about me and why I ask questions. I'm a curious human being. Here's why I'm a curious human being. Explain the why. Most of our issues in the world are because we don't spend the time to explain the why. Why? Because we always assume that other people understand. No, we don't. Trust me, no one does. So yeah, this is all about getting your slow is smooth is fast, giving people the benefit of the doubt, asking questions. If you're the question asker but people don't like it, then okay, why don't we like that? Oh, they don't know why I'm asking questions. As Simon Sinek would say, start with why. Wonderful book, another great book, by the way, Start with Why by Simon Sinek.
Yes. And somebody asked about the question about the books. We'll get all the books together and post them so people can get access to reading them at their leisure. So we have time for one more question that we could go back to if we wanted to. If people want to put those in the comments, that would be great. We have other questions that we also got, so we'll respond to those post the event. So look for the answers to those. One takeaway that I would want to ask Alex for those attending has to do with what can I do now as a supervisor or a manager? What is the first thing that I should be thinking about in order to make a change? So I hear all the things that you are doing as at DX Learning in terms of care. I hear it, I understand it, it makes sense to me, but now I need to take action within my organization. Yeah. What is it that I should be thinking about before I take my first step?
For me, the first part of servant leadership and psychological safety and being a modern leader is vulnerability. Period. Nothing good happens without vulnerability. Ego kills teams. Ego is the vulnerability killer for all intents and purposes. So it's vulnerability's kryptonite is ego. No one wants to work for an ego boss. So an ego statistical narcissist. So vulnerability is how to counter that. So the first thing we can all do, all of us, is be vulnerable. Let's go back to care, clarity, autonomy, relationships, and equity. The one reason I asked you what's your Achilles heel is if you're open and vulnerable about your challenge, like me, I am horrific at providing clarity. I'm an entrepreneur. Don't like it, don't want it. I believe it slows me down. But at least I know that, and I tell my team so they can help me. We've got to ask for help. We've got to stop the perfectionism and stop the I can fix everything. You can't. People love to work for a vulnerable human being. So the first step, number one, is get open, get vulnerable, be transparent, take care and go, you know what, I know and I have data to support that my Achilles heel is relationships. I'll go to my team and say, hey team, I've had a bit of an epiphany. I've realized I haven't had enough one-on-ones of you. I haven't been giving you enough time to really get to know you and get curious. I like to fix that. Hey, who's got some ideas? Start to be vulnerable, be self-aware, and ask questions of your team to help you. course they want to help you. So that would be step one from my point of view.
And just to expand on that a little bit, being vulnerable is very hard for people. And it is a contributor to some of why we have these problems in organizations today. Managers have tried to be vulnerable and go to their leaders and say, hey, this is not working. I need you to make some changes. And they get rebuffed and they don't get what they need.
Yeah.
So the other part of vulnerability is to be able to understand what I have to do. I recognize what my fault is or my blind spot is.
Yeah.
But in addition, I also have to learn how to become vulnerable.
Yeah. And
I might not have the skill set to do that. So any context that you can provide around that.
So two things that got triggered in my brain when you said that. Number one, do you work in an environment that stimulates vulnerability? Right? Does your boss allow you to be vulnerable? That's a problem. So any HR people talking and listening to the show, please, we have to create environments as culture. Do you even value the growth mindset? Do you value people being able to being open and honest about themselves? If you don't, that's a problem. It's hard to. So that's a step one. It would be to either ask your boss, well, how do we work on this? How do we create an environment where I can be vulnerable? Because right now I feel threatened and I don't think I can. So that'll be one thing. HR people, of course, we need to work on creating an environment where people can be. We value vulnerability. And two, I've got 2 coaches and a couple of mentors. Go ask. There's so many people around you who want to help. Just, hey, ask, find them. If you don't have a mentor, find a mentor. If you don't have a coach, ask a coach. I've got a therapist. Ask your therapist. I do. Find someone who can help you. I'd like to be more vulnerable. I don't know how. Someone in your sphere of influence will more than likely have some great answers, either from their own experience or books or whatever. But yeah, go out there and get curious. Start asking.
Great. Well, I think that's really good feedback on vulnerability, and I think we could add a book or 2 for people to consider reading to just help them understand what it means to become vulnerable. So thank you, Alex. This was great presentation. Thank you all for participating. Great questions. We will make sure we respond to all of them. So appreciate everybody participating today. And look, for those of you who joined early in the morning, I appreciate you coming in early in the morning. Thank you all from Turkey, which is way into the afternoon. So appreciate you participating. And those of you who are also participating from around the world. So thanks so much. Make it a great day for everyone.
Thanks, Cliff.